Shadow of the Erdtree DLC just launched for Elden Ring, and maybe you're coming back after not having played the game since launch, or you're like me and finally finishing the game for the first time to then go into the DLC. Whatever the case is, Elden Ring is popping off right now, and I want to compile some of my hot tips for those that are either new or returning to the game to help you get back into the swing of things quicker. There are tons of things I totally forgot about the game, but because Elden Ring does things slightly different than a lot of the other entries in the Souls series. In fact, it combines a lot of the best features of a lot of them. You can quickly navigate to any one of the tips I'm talking about using the chapters below instead of watching the entire video. Just jump around to any part of the video that makes the most sense for you, or if nothing on the list interests you, then please feel free to shut the video down. Before you head out, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if this video ends up helping you, as those things are free and have a huge impact on my channel. Also, I stream Elden Ring on my Twitch right now with my first strength intelligence build that I've ever done with the series, which you can find the link below in the description and pinned comment. So swing on by and have some fun with us. But let's get started here on things you forgot about Elden Ring. Jumping into the game, the first thing I'm going to tell you about isn't even really a tip. It's launched with the Shadow of the Erdtree patch. So we're going to go to Start, we're going to go to System, and we're going to go over here to the very, it's the very bottom here. It's this third tab of Display. Mark New Items and Show Recent Items tab. These two things were added to the game with the Shadow of the Erdtree's patch, not even the actual DLC. So if you don't have the DLC and you're just jumping into the game for the first time, or you're trying to beat the game before you buy the DLC, whatever the situation is, make sure you set both of these situations to on. They're off by default like this, but we're going to turn them on. This allows me to go to my inventory, and I have this tab you can see in the upper left corner up here. It says recent items. So if I click this, I can just look through every single recent item, and any item I get now has a little exclamation point next to it showing me that I just got this item, so I can quickly look at it. And if I don't want to even have that recent items tab on, because if you've played the game before, it can be kind of annoying to go press start and you immediately jump into recent items. Well, what's nice is those little exclamation points are then reflected, as you can see right here at the Grace Mimic, down in the other tabs. So as I jump around, okay, cool, I've got that there. Okay, cool, I've got that there. So while all this stuff I have on my PS5 version, it's nice to be able to jump back into the game and go, oh, okay, I forgot where to find all these items, or whatever it is. You can quickly navigate this. Maybe you went ahead and picked up an item. Like if you take a look at these crystal tiers, a lot of the crystal tiers look very similar, and you might not know which one you just picked up. It's nice to be able to see, okay, cool, I see the exclamation point, boom, there we go, I'm good to go. So this is a real nice quality of life improvement. They've also done one with the map, wherein you can press left bumper on the map, and it has the map functions menu for multiplayer status display, the summoning pool list, that you can just simply jump into and see all of the summoning pools that you've activated in your game. So hopefully this helps you out as you come back, because this is a new feature added in. Setting up your character, either new or old, can be a tedious part of the game, but it's also a fun part of the game, because now you get to choose what items you wear and how you look. But you also want to think about the practicality, and shields have a very specific one that you might have forgotten about. I know I did until I took a look at it again. You look at this one field over here that says guarded damage negation. What it's saying here is whenever you hold down guard, this is the percent of the damage that this item will mitigate when you are guarding. So for example, the Hawk Crest wooden shield only negates 90% of physical damage, which is pretty good, but this is a medium shield. If I look at a small shield here, you can see that this only negates 73%. So remember these things when you go to pick up and wear shields again, because those different negations are going to determine what type of damage you're going to be best suited for. Maybe you're going into the Academy and you're going to deal with a lot of magic damage. So you want to have something with as much magic damage negation as possible. So here you go. You can hold this one up and you're going to take at least 66% less magic damage from things. And also if something hits you with physical, you're going to completely negate the physical damage by 100%. Remember these things because they are important. Those damage negation numbers give you an idea of how viable that shield is when it comes to just straight up dodging or negating physical damage coming your way. That's why the brass shield is one of the best medium shields in the early game, because it has that 100% as well as a lot of really good elemental resistances. So Just make sure you remember damage negation. It was one thing I entirely forgot about, and then I was like, oh, that's why this shield sucks. I didn't choose the right one. Now this next tip is about guard parry. You might have forgotten about it. So how this works effectively is holding down your shield, wait until something hits you, then press R2. And that's a matter of simply holding down R1 again and pressing R2 as soon as they hit you, and you will do a guard parry. This sometimes can be called a shield parry, which is different though than pressing just simply L2, this button right here, which will parry if your shield has that. Oh, that's a good weapon. That's a good weapon to get. If your shield has that caked into it. Guard parry is important because it does a ton of stance damage, which will be the topic of our next discussion, but it's something that I completely forgot existed in this game because I thought I only had to do parries because I'm so used to playing, say, Bloodborne or Dark Souls 3. So make sure you're pressing R1, something hits your shield, then you press R2 to immediately turn that into a high stance damage attack, which could possibly stagger your opponent, allowing for a real heavy hit. We just talked about this, but to bring it in further, we have two different values, poise and stance. Poise is what your player has. It's this right here. The degree to which you can resist collapsing under enemy attacks. Or if you're out of stamina, you usually get like that level of stunned, right? Where your character, you have that whoomp, and your character goes down on one knee before getting completely skull fucked by something. That's poise. It applies to you and every other character in the game. So it's a PvP value outside of just dealing with the enemy's attacks to you. Now, there is a hidden one that NPCs or enemies PvE have. It is called stance. When I talked about doing that guard parries do some of the most stance damage possible. But stance damage is going to be dependent upon the actual weapon you're using, what weapon attack you're doing. Let's do this, a light attack versus a heavy attack versus a jump heavy. All those things will have different amounts of stance damage. Let's pivot over to this spreadsheet so I can show you some stuff. This is a super handy spreadsheet that goes through poise damage, stance damage, stamina damage, every single thing. I unfortunately don't know who made this. It's linked somewhere on a Reddit. So if you know who made this, please let it be known in the comment section below so I can give the proper credit. But I will put a link to this chart here. But the big one we're going to look for at the very bottom, it says poise damage PvE. And we'll zoom in so you can see. And this gives us a direct breakdown of all of the damage types, all of the weapons, all of the types of poise damage in those, right? So I can see what a charged R2, what an R2 does, all of these different types of damage. And you can see, just by looking at daggers, for example, they do not have a high amount of poise damage, right? I'm sorry, stance damage. They're not going to stagger someone quickly by virtue of just simply pressing R2 or R1 for that matter. But if I look down over here at greatswords, you can see double that value. So these are important things to know because maybe, with a greatsword or a colossal sword, which is down in the 14, you're doing more of the overall stance damage to an enemy, but you're not maybe hitting as fast. And these things are really important to know so that you have a good idea. Being one-handed versus two-handed, those things all change these damage numbers, these charts as you go across here, right? So a jumping one-handed R2 for a colossal sword is 24 versus the 14 of earlier, right? So all these values change. That two-handed R2 is 39. And this might be convoluted, like, yo, dude, I'm playing a video game. I don't need to worry about numbers right now. Don't worry about the set numbers, but this is just a way to kind of get a good idea for yourself. Take me, for example. I started off as the prisoner, meaning I used the S-stock to begin with. And I wasn't used to having a sword with such a low amount of stance damage. I was used to using heavier weapons, two-handed weapons, and getting large amounts of stance damage where I could then quickly critical strike and destroy something. So this is a real good way to kind of get an idea for what the stance damage of your weapons are and how they will equate to your ability to flow around the targets you're hitting. Are you going to do stance damage, stagger them, hit the big crits in, or are you going to be hitting real quick taps and bouncing away, real quick taps and bouncing away with a thrusting sword or a dagger? Whatever it is, use this chart to your advantage to help you out in delivering those critical strikes to enemies, or slamming your keyboard and bringing up the Alt button over here to mess everything up in the middle of a video. Whatever you do, try it out. My next tip is about two-handing your weapons. Using a two-handed weapon might be kind of a no-brainer, right? When you look at something like a colossal sword, right? Oh, okay, this is going to be a two-handed weapon. I'm going to be going crazy with it. But even stuff like an S-stock or just simply a crystal sword, which is a straight sword, two-handing them allows some different variations of things that you're doing. Also, what I want you to consider too is that two-handing something allows you to add 50% of your strength to your stats. So for example, my character has 12 strength. This weapon requires 13 strength. If I use two hands, A, I do more damage, and B, I get 6 additional strength added into my character's stats as far as the attribute requirements go. So this allows me to get more strength on the character to make the crystal sword do more damage. And a good example here too would be the claymore. If I'm adding 6 more, my strength becomes 18, so I can use both of these weapons, whereas I would not be able to use them otherwise. So if I press this, it says, hey, you can't use this. And let's just look at the single-handed attacks. So just pressing R1, you can see here's my single-handed attacks, right? And if I press R2, you can see that's my that's the combo for my R2 attacks, right? But when I press Y on my controller and R1, I don't know what it is on PC, even though I'm playing on a PC, and I press R1, my attack patterns change. I'm using upwards and downward slashes more or less versus those arcing cleaves in front of myself. Or my R2s now are sweeping attacks in front of myself with a slight upward swing at that third combo. Those things are important because two-handing weapons is going to change that combo. It's going to change up how that weapon operates. It's going to slow things down a little bit, but you're going to get more damage. You're going to be able to maybe use a weapon you wouldn't use otherwise. And remember, you can still, I swapped off my shield over here because it was putting me into a heavy load. You can still do stuff like this. Hey, you know what? I really am not going to be using two-handed weapons here, but I'm coming up to a situation where I need a shield. Well, our Y and R1, we swap that back out. Our shield's on our back. We bring it back out again. Or, in my case, my character's a spellblade. I'm going to cast my spells as I see fit. But now it's melee time. Y and R1 to start doing all that heavy melee damage. And remember too, you always have your Ashes of War that you can take advantage of, which will be of course different and will more maybe perhaps effective in a two-handed weapon variation over just a single one-handed one. Take the thrusting swords for example, like the S-stock or the rapier. This is going to give you further reach because you have two hands being used rather than just a simple one, which the character has a very slight change in its actual attack pattern. So my R1 here is slight, like just these quick stabs. And if I go into two-handed, it's like just a very slight increase with two-handed. But the big thing here is my R2 with this is more of a dynamic slash, right? I'm taking advantage of a thrusting weapon using a slash attack with the S-stock here, which I can get, but you can see it's a different slash with one-handed. So using those two hands to your advantage is a great way to get more damage, increase your stats, to maybe use the weapon effectively, and also switch up the movement patterns. This can help out in PvP as well as in PvE. If you're like me, then you're going to be playing with spells for the first time. Usually I go with a Strength Faith build, and that, yeah, there's spells, but it's a little bit different. This time around, I'm using Intelligence. That means I'm going to start using the Glintstone spells, the Gravity spells, the Carrion Slicer, well, whatever it is. And with that, you now have to kind of take a look at your scaling. So let's go ahead and go to our equipment, and we're going to go down to our staves, and look at a very important value. It's called sorcery scaling. Now, there is incant scaling for anything that uses incantations, but for this example here, we're going to talk about sorcery. So this is a degree to which sorceries increase in power. This number will increase as you upgrade your stats and or the item. Meteorite staff is maybe not the best example here because you cannot upgrade it, but let's look at the demi-human queen staff here. It is at +4. The sorcery scaling on this will increase over time because it will scale with our intelligence. As we put more intelligence into this, this will all kind of go together. It's not like a direct, oh, you put the levels into this and that number goes up. It's the scaling of the attribute that matters the most. And as your intelligence increases, you get more of an advantage and more of a sorcery scaling into all this action. This is a huge hornet's nest of a topic, and you can spend hours diving into different Reddit posts about it. But the point here is to get an idea of which staff to use, or maybe which seal to use if you're using any of the Faith or the Bestial Godslayer incantations, the Bestial incantations, or maybe specific sorcery types like Glint Blade or Gravity. It's looking at this sorcery scaling and getting an idea of which makes sense for you at what point in the game. Like the Meteorite staff is real amazing in the beginning, that and the intelligence level scaling, but the demi-human queen staff gets really good towards the latter portions of the game. Whatever it is that makes sense for the build you have in mind. But what I really want you to look at more than anything with the sorcery and the incant scaling is this passive effects section at the bottom here. If I'm playing with bestial incantations, the Clawmark seal gives me, I think it's like a 10% flat bonus to all of my bestial incantations. This makes it better than most seals of its ilk. Or the Godslayer incantation, for example, here boosts my Godslayer incantations. Maybe I want to focus solely on gravity magic. Well, that makes the Meteorite staff very good because it gives me, I think it's a 30% bonus to gravity sorcery. Another example here would be the Carrion Glint Blade staff. Boost that Glint Blade sorcery. So if you want to use a specific sorcery type, from what I understand, the best way to approach it is go with the Glint Blade, the Glintstone staff that gives you a passive effect over one that has a higher scaling, because apparently that passive effect is always a better bonus percentage-wise. Or go with a seal, a sacred seal that gives you a passive bonus moreover than that incant scaling if you're focusing on a specific type of spell, as you'll just get a much better damage increase. If you're playing a caster character, you're going to be getting scrolls throughout the game, and you're going to get them regardless, even if you're not playing a caster character. But what you do with them is going to be important. You can use them for some quests. More often than not, those quests are not overly important. But this scroll here, for example, is going to give me Glintstone Comet Shard and Star Shower, and you can give it to specific NPCs across the world. Those NPCs might die, those NPCs might live. You will typically get a bell bearing, in which case you can replicate that NPC's vendor inventory in the hold, in the roundtable hold. But what I like to do for all of my scrolls, all of my books, all of my spell anything, I bring him over here to the Turtle Pope, as he is so belovedly named, and I simply give him the scrolls. So now, rather than me having to worry about where I gave the sorceries to who or the incantations to who, I've got them all neatly packed here into the Turtle Pope. And he, by and large, is not going to be affected by anything in the game aside from me killing him, which is nice because there are some characters that are going to live and die by your decisions in the game. This just makes it a lot easier to find any and all scrolls that you use. I think there might be one or two quests that do require you to give a scroll to a specific character, but by and large, this is the best way to approach things so that you have everything in one nice, neat area, so you don't need to worry about missing out on anything because it was on a vendor that was killed or what have you. Now, a resource that was linked to me during one of my streams is this NPC Quests and Endings Guide by Psychomantis. This was created by a Reddit user, of course. It was linked to me, and this is a Reddit link. And from it, you get pretty much a flowchart of every single character in the game, what their quest is, who it interacts with, who it possibly cancels out, who it kills, and what ending it ultimately leads to. You can see at the bottom which ones lead to who. So if you're maybe talking to a specific character and you want to know if this will shut off another character's conversation, or if I go down this conversation to a certain point, it prevents you from talking to another character, this can be a real handy resource without even spoilers. You've got like little tiny things here that says like an X, and it tells you that questline ended prematurely. So if I just look, without even looking at all the text here, I can see, okay, there's an X right here. Something happens with Ronnie and this character to end this prematurely. Or over here with Nephili Lu, with this guy over here. or Day Dallas, whatever his name is over here. So this is a really handy, I'm zoomed out like this because I don't want to spoil anything for anyone. So this is a real handy resource you can use if you're coming into the game to accomplish a specific ending for a new time, or you're doing it for the first time and you don't understand how some of these characters interact with themselves. I have found this resource to be absolutely invaluable in trying to determine what a specific action I should take with a character so as not to shut off another action with another character. If you played the game at launch, you probably don't know that this feature was added. It was added in a patch slightly after launch, I think 3 or 4 months after. But this right here, that just shows me any NPCs that are in a location that you typically have something to do with whatever it is, the plot, the story, whatever. This is a handy thing. But there's another portion of the map that you should know about that really helps out. And it's something that I wish more open world games would have to help break down the barrier of entry when it comes to exploring all the little nuance. If I'm on, well, PS5 in this example, so I'm going to press square, I can see all these markers I can add. So I can go, okay, let me add a marker here. Let me go ahead and add a marker here. Like, oh, you know what? I've been here. I know that there's a ton of goodies that I went for, but I went over in this direction. And you know what? I got to go pick my kids up. I don't have kids. I got a dog. That's it. But now I know when I come back into the game, oh, that's right. There were some goodies over here. I want to go back over here and do that. Or maybe there was like a real badass monster over in this location. Or maybe like, you know, I keep dying over here. I'll figure that out, what that is later. Or there's an invasion right here. Whatever these things are, use these markers to your advantage because it's a great way to annotate the map to help you out in determining where you should go. Now, this is all going to lean into my next tip, but I really think that this is probably one of the strongest additions to this game, and it's something that I wish more open world games had because sometimes you can get completely lost or you leave the game for a month or two, maybe you're in the middle of a move, whatever it is. That happened to me the first time I played Elden Ring, and I came back going, what the fuck was I doing? What was I doing again? So these things can really help you out to keep your flow organized and help you come back to locations that you maybe moved from. Especially when you hit to like these points right here, or okay, I can go up over here, but there's something down over here. You know what? I'm going to go the opposite direction. I can see on the map that this dead ends because of a cliff. Let's just put, you know, we'll put that there. We'll go this direction. So maybe I come back here 3 hours from now. Oh, you know what? I didn't go over here. Let me go knock this out. Because I find in Elden Ring, I always end up hitting a ramp of laundry list of things to do. Oh, I forgot about this cave over here. Let me go do that cave. Or I just remembered I didn't do that goal over there. Let me go do that goal over there. Whatever the situation is, use these map markers. My last tip isn't even something from the game. Well, we've had a couple of those not in the game, but it's Map Genie. I've been using Map Genie for a couple of years now. This is not a sponsored thing. I love the hell out of it, and in a game like Elden Ring, it is super invaluable. You go ahead and you click here. The Shadow Realm is the new thing added with the DLC, so you can actually use this for the Shadow of the Erdtree, even a checklist right here, which is cool. But you have all these specific things if you want to, but we can click the lands between where we start off in the game, and I have this entire thing to go through. And it all looks like this because I've super zoomed in. But let's jump all the way to the beginning of the game. This can be a cool way to track certain things. Go, okay, cool. Did I get the Dragon Communion Seal? Did I get Lightning Grease over here? And you click this and you click Found. I have an account. I think it's like something like $6 a year. I don't even know. I think the account allows you to track things, or allows you to create like specific lists over here, like presets and such. But I'm pretty sure that if you mark these things as found, even if you don't have the paid account, if you just have a free account, it remembers it. Don't quote me on that, but still, it's a great way to manage the game, give you a sense of direction when you're lost, or maybe find specific items. Like, okay, what does this say right here? The Golden Halberd. So I want to find the Golden Halberd. Search. Cool. Well, there it is. There's the enemy that drops it. So you can use these things to your advantage to navigate the map, to find specific items for a specific build you have in mind. Like I just used, I wanted to get the Sword of Night and Flame. I knew where it was, but this was a cool way to kind of say, oh, okay. Originally when I went to go look for it, I thought it was over here, and I'm stupid, and I forgot that it's actually all the way up here. So these are examples of times where you can use this to give you direction in your new game, give you direction in your new game plus, help you find items for your build, whatever it is that makes sense for you, or to help you go back through an area real quick. Like, hey, before we go further north, What's in Liurnia that I maybe missed? Oh, you know what? I didn't even go in this whole section over here. Let me go do that. Whatever it is, use Map Genie to your advantage. I mean, I use it for Escape from Tarkov more than anything, but it does help me in Elden Ring too. At that, it brings our video here to a close. So hopefully these tips helped you out. There's nothing completely, game breaking here, but these are little things that I completely forgot about that really added to the difficulty curve of me getting back into the game. There are things that were completely part of the way that I played the game the first time around because I was playing a strength faith build. I was using a confessor and I was jumping in, and I completely forgot about guard parry. I forgot about the huge advantage of using a two-hand over a one-hand in certain scenarios, stance damage, and how those things can really play together with each other, and how the different weapons in the game have such varying amounts of stance damage based off of their attack types. All these little things add together to make a package that makes it far easier to address the bigger challenges in this game, because you now have the better tools that you had the first time you played, or that you learned through the many new game pluses that you've probably pushed through. And if you take away nothing from this video, I hope it's just that flow chart of the character quests. That thing is so invaluable. When that was linked to me, I'm like, I will be saving this. I'm going to send this to my group of friends. I'm going to pin it to our Discord. This thing is so huge. So hopefully something in this video helped you out. Don't forget to comment below and let me know what did help you out, or if there's other tips, if you're saying that you want to talk more about, or maybe I didn't properly discuss how stance damage works. Let it be known in the comment section below. This game's been out for quite a bit of time now, so there's tons of information out there. You can find it on Reddit, you can find it on any of the wikis. There are a lot of really amazing content creators that have made really awesome content for Elden Ring, so please go and check them out. Dive into some of the explanations for this game, because it can be a complex game and it can be daunting, but slamming your head against it a bunch of times is part of the process and the journey of learning or relearning this genre. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.